Thank you for being here. First order of business will be the adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to we adopt the agenda as presented?
I make a motion we accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed vote no. The agenda is adopted. Next item will be Kim with his update on the road.
Good to see you this evening. I'll kind of run through just a few notes by area tonight. In the Green Park Inn area, I think it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow, we shifted traffic in that area, and that allowed us to start removing the old roadbed in front of the Green Park Inn, which was accomplished. And since then, they've been finishing the remaining storm drainage in that area. Matter of fact, I think they finished it today. So we're anticipating the rest of the week, if we can keep a little bit of sunshine, we'll keep fine grading, and maybe by Friday, put down the rest of the base asphalt in front of the Green Park Inn, if the weather will hold on Friday. We've also been doing work in the Country Club Drive area. We've had some unsuitable soils issues that we've replaced and taken care of as of today. So we hope to be paving there tomorrow, which would be the pavement widening for the turn lane, as well as the first layer of surface on that intersection. So hopefully that'll shape up good tomorrow also. There's very few sidewalks left in the Green Park Inn area. Is one of those areas that they'll be getting ready for sidewalks. I hope maybe by the end of the week we'll have all those poured out. Might be a few handicap ramps left. Besides that, the only sidewalks left will be in the Green Park Inn area. So once we can finish the asphalt and the curb and gutter in that area, then the sidewalks will take shape back down in the Green Park Inn area. I do have another traffic shift scheduled for next week, which I've been scheduling it for 2 weeks, and the weather just hasn't quite worked for us. But if we can finish a few minor paving things, and if I can get these sidewalks finished, we'll look to go ahead and put all of the traffic in the future northbound lanes from Norwood Circle all the way to the old Goforth intersection. And if we can accomplish that, that will allow us to go to the other side, and from Pinnacle Drive down to the old Goforth Road intersection, we can finish the curb and gutter on that side. And after that, there's very little asphalt left once that curb and gutter gets put down. And there's no sidewalk on that side of the road either. The sidewalk only continues out on the Green Park Inn side. So that's our optimistic goal for the next several days in that area. On the mountain work, we have been trying to focus more in town, but there's still some work going on down there with some of the wall work. They're going to start setting panels on that large wall below Cone Orchard, between Cone Orchard and the Blue Ridge Vista condos. I think those panels are arriving tomorrow. And they've also been doing some fine grading work in the Blackberry condos area, and could potentially be doing some paving towards the end there next week. And one other item, I talked to Doug Eller with the DOT before I got here, just to get an idea on the mowing, because we did top dress everything in the spring. So with all this rain, it's really been coming up good. So he went ahead and authorized us to at least get on a 2-week cycle. So we'll try to get that on a regular rotation on the mowing, and I'll try to get them scheduled next week too, because I think we mowed, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but it's growing good again. So, but those are the highlights.
It's been well watered.
It has been very well watered. So yeah, our biggest challenge is just trying to string several dry days together. So,
Thank you,
anything
Kim.
else? Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of our April 11th, 2017 regular council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. Ed, would you like to go over the consent agenda?
I will, thank you, Mayor. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. The first one is for use of facilities. Ken Savinsky from the Blue Ridge Relay would like to use the pool parking lot and the restroom facilities from 3 till 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. on May 9th. use of the facilities and that they needed to get approval, so present that for your consideration. We also have the memorandum of agreement presented by the foundation regarding the old firehouse. This was I think in February, they came and council gave some consideration to a couple of items, extending the deadline and also paying for the boring soil test behind. We have not received that report yet. The third item on the consent agenda is a request for release on taxes. In this particular case, this was Crippen Hospitality, and the taxes that have been charged here were for personal property, but that was after they had already sold Crippen, so these were not applicable for them. So request for a tax release, and that total amount was $945.29. And then the final item on the consent agenda, this is not a done deal because this is contingent upon what council does in budget. But in order to move to some of the products that the North Carolina League provides insurance-wise, we have to have a resolution. If we wait and ask you to pass this resolution in June, it will be too late to get it started in July. So this is a request to approve the resolution, and pending your decisions in budget workshops, we'll know whether we will actually mail it to them. And those are your consent agenda items.
Move for approval.
I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, now ask it.
Okay. I had two questions about the firehouse. And if you want to turn to the ones on where it talks about ownership, and it also talks about no obligation. And it may or may not be a big deal. And if it isn't a big deal, then I'm fine with it. But the sentence that says, the town agrees to work with the EDC in an effort to devise a legal structure that will allow a term of operation for a cultural center that will enhance fundraising efforts. So I guess my question for that is, does that term of operation, does that need to be defined as specific length of term, or is it just open-ended?
As this is a MOA, I'm going to defer if I can to Alan, because I don't know what the legal answer to that is.
I think this is really just a one-year term to
Okay.
determine the feasibility of this whole
All right, but
project, and so. the
But if we
emphasis is
adopt
on
this,
no
does this mean-
obligation.
so if we adopt this today, we're not locked in to a long-term thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, good. Then the other one that was on number 6, when it says that the town agrees to act reasonably in the review of the proposal with respect. Well, I would like to think that we would act reasonably, but my question is, what does that mean, reasonably? Agree with whatever's proposed, or what?
I don't think it means anything.
Okay, good. Then I don't have a,
In terms of legally binding the
Yeah,
town to do
okay.
something, it means nothing.
good. Then I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Not all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. Thank you. Public hearing, Heather Ridge annexation.
All right, Mayor, in Kevin's absence, I'm going to take care of this one. At the April Town Council meeting, this was originally presented by Kevin, our planning director. And this was a application for annexation of 2 properties at 194 Heather Ridge Lane. And the purpose of this was so that they could connect to the town sewer. And lots are only partially within town, and our ordinance requires that if they're gonna be on the sewer, they have to be totally within town. So these folks have requested an annexation voluntarily, and, I can read, what Kevin has prepared. This was, Woodstock Capital LP annexation. Mr. Richard Kammerer, general partner of Woodstock Capital LP, submitted a petition of voluntary annexation for council consideration in April, which initiated the annexation process. Tonight's public hearing is the second and final step of the voluntary annexation process. Enclosed is an annexation ordinance, which includes a deed description of the property and specifies about utility connections and responsibilities. The property is partially in the town limits and partially in the ETJ. If approved as presented, the annexation will become effective May 31st of this year. The boundary map will be recorded with the Watauga County Register of Deeds in the Office of North Carolina Secretary of State, and a copy of the map will also be delivered to the Watauga County Board of Elections.
Any public comments?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. Public hearing is closed. We'll entertain a motion for action on this.
Make a motion, we adopt the Heather Ridge annexation.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, Destination by Design, Gateway update.
Bring this down to my level. Thanks. So most of all of you all have seen a good part of this presentation in January at your retreat. And we heard, we had some alternatives for you for Sunset Drive, and you all came to some consensus on those alternatives. And so we've taken those and developed a plan view, which is based on the survey, so all kind of to scale. But the plan view really has some color to it. We try to make it really accessible because we're going to then take this to the general public, sort of a meeting. We'll have 2 different drop-in sessions. And so we wanted to come to you all first and say, here are the tweaks that we made from January, from what you've seen in January. And this is what we're going to take. Upon your approval, this is what we'll take to the stakeholder meeting with the business owners along Sunset. And then we'll take it to general public meeting. And so I wanted to show this to you tonight.
Just push it.
Do you have a, okay,
We
sure.
don't have them, so.
That's fine. All right, from Destination by Design. So our scope here indicates kind of our scope of for this project. We were really looking at kind of a site review and analysis of Sunset Drive, looking at some streetscape alternatives and some gateway alternatives. Then we had the facilitated discussion with you all in January, and then coming to the stakeholder and public meetings. And we did the complete concept level plan. Now, of course, tonight we're open to feedback to kind of hone in on that concept level plan. So, you all have seen this, but I'll just give a quick identification here. This is just a framework plan that we like to do, and this really helps us look at Sunset Drive. It's fairly long, and so we kind of broke it up into these different sections just for the planning purposes, in part because the street kind of acts in different ways. You know, very much closer to Valley Boulevard is very wide, and as you get closer to Main Street, it really narrows. And so, and the businesses change slightly, and it feels more, of course, downtown street when you get closer to Main Street. So we look at 3 sections. Section 1 is from Main Street to Maple. Section 2 is near the elementary school from Maple Street all the way to Ransom, and Ransom all the way to Valley Boulevard. And since we met in January, you all put the stop sign in at Ransom, which you move way faster than most of the communities that we work with. But of course, that you're blowing rock, so. Okay, so we're looking at what we heard in January from you all is we had some consensus on section 1, and this is what I call the most downtown piece. The idea of removing some of that parallel parking because those lanes are so narrow there that there's almost a safety concern. And if we can widen those sidewalks and really put a preference in some ways on the pedestrian, or at least equal preference with the pedestrian vehicles there. And so you all came to consensus on that, and we'll come back to showing what that cross-section will look like. Section 2, I show 2 cross sections here. This is what we showed in January, and what we heard from you all was this grassed area. Some people call it a verge or a tree lawn. How about, you all said to us, how about instead, we get rid of that area because it's just more maintenance, and then we can make the sidewalks wider. And if we have, still include street trees, but put those street trees in grates, and so that effectively makes your sidewalk twice as wide. So we'll take a look at the new cross sections. But still going through the comments that we heard from you all was consensus on having a planted median for Section 3, and that's the section that's closest to Valley Boulevard. It's about 700 linear feet, just a wide expanse of pavement there. We showed you a center median, and that's what you all had the kind of consensus on, that we could still have 2 sizable travel lanes and a 12-foot planted median there. It would really be kind of set that off as a gateway into downtown. That we actually provided a couple of different sketches of specific gateways at Valley Boulevard. The consensus, we had a whimsical one, which we'll come to at the end of this presentation. You all liked that because it seemed it was the real original to Blowing Rock, is what our goal was. I hope that we achieved that. No other community really should have the same kind of gateway as Blowing Rock. And it was a whimsical quality. We kind of dialed back the fairy tale aspect of that, so, for lack of a better word there. We wanted to, and I think this is a great comment, to really highlight the Middle Fork. Sunset Drive goes right over the Middle Fork of the South Fork of the New River. This is the New River, so let's highlight that. And Middle Fork Greenway being a going concern, and we should acknowledge that. And that you all wanted to hold stakeholder and public workshops to get input before this was considered final at all. So we'll move on to take a quick look at each of these sections. Again, we're looking here at Main Street, looking down Sunset, and fairly narrow sidewalks, not a lot of street trees, and very narrow travel lanes for the vehicles. Of course, you can tell from this picture that you feel a little claustrophobic as a pedestrian there. And so this is the plan view, and we've got this for each of the sections. And so during the public meeting, what we'll do is we'll have the plan view all as one long section on a giant board that people can come up and really look at, ask us questions about. So we're looking at taking away some of the parallel parking on this south side, the side of the Sunset and Vine here. And then you've got the elementary school, really looking at creating a really strong visual pattern with pavers. But in this section, you've got the issue that if you that it's level with the road. The sidewalk is level with the road in a lot of places. And if you actually bring that up 6 inches, then you're having some drainage issues kind of going back toward the buildings. And so we were looking at what about defining this a little bit similar to a Woonerf, which is in the Netherlands, which is just really kind of a living street. But it is very often gives, it's at the same grade, so you don't have a sidewalk at 6-inch with a 6-inch curb, but you have bollards instead that define and protect the pedestrian, and different paving patterns along the street. And well, I'll show you a little bit more. But another aspect here, I did a little research on the weekend by going to Sunset and Vine and having a little wine and cheese thing. But spoke with the business owner there about this project, and please come to the stakeholder meetings. But when I was there, I noticed my husband and I parked in the public parking off of Maple, and I noticed that we had to kind of walk back to Maple Street and then down and then back up. And I thought it'd be worth, because there's this track that's undeveloped, worth looking at, some kind of easement there to provide a pedestrian access that gives fairly quick, you'll see it on number 8 up there, it would provide a quicker connection between your public, just for pedestrians, between your public parking and where most of the pedestrians would be going into Main Street. So kind of exploring that option as well. We'll jump into the cross sections. This is the existing, of course, it's the really narrow travel lanes, 9.5 feet, and then public or parallel parking, 8 feet on either side of that, and then very narrow sidewalks, of course. And so what we're proposing is this: you'd have the different paving patterns, and you would have more like an 8-foot sidewalk. Of course, it's different. It varies slightly in that area, but 8-foot sidewalk, one side parallel parking, then that gives you room to have 10-foot travel lanes, vehicular travel lanes. And then, of course, kind of looking at the lighting, the street lights on here, or the pedestrian lighting along here, in kind of a different way than the rest of downtown. A little bit of a different style, perhaps. But of course, this is just conceptual, and we'll be asking for feedback. But here's the example of what I was talking about at Woonarf, where you've got just a lot of different paving patterns that really kind of define those zones, the vehicular zone, the pedestrian zone, but the pedestrians are protected with bollards. I think that the closest one is Wall Street in Asheville. I mean, that vehicles go down there, they're going very slow because the lanes are narrow, and vehicles just, they automatically know that there are going to be pedestrians crossing that because there's just a lot happening. So moving downhill, but closer to Valley Boulevard, we come to the Inner Garden and this section. Kind of looking at this, we can actually then provide parallel parking, which is existing now on the south side, and also widen those sidewalks. This is where I was talking about taking away that grassed area where the trees are, and actually having that as a wider sidewalk, putting new street trees, if we can, in grates, and so you've got more like an 8-foot sidewalk. So here's the existing cross section there. Right now, 5 feet sidewalk, the 4-foot yard, and the 9.5-foot travel lanes, and on-street parking on one side only, and that's existing. And here's proposed. So we can, in some places, we can get up to 10-foot sidewalk, and then, of course, keeping the parallel parking, and then the lanes. And also providing for improved pedestrian crosswalks, because this is a fairly long block. You know, that first block is actually pretty short, about 300 linear feet from Main Street to Maple Street, but Maple, going down to Ransom, is actually about 700 feet. And so it's a fairly long block for a pedestrian to go. And so to provide where strategic, we can provide crosswalks, and potentially, since this is not signalized right there, potentially a rapid flash beacon where the pedestrian actually comes up and activates that. And it's not an overpowering sign, it's just a pedestrian sign, but it does have a yellow light that'll flash to vehicles. So that's something to think about. Okay, so another cross section here. This is at the new public house. So where the speed table is right now, and you've got 10.5-foot lanes, 8-foot on-street parking on the south side. So again, we're looking at providing a wider sidewalk by putting the trees and grates, and then of course, the parallel parking, 10.5-foot lanes. And then on places where you've got fairly long lengths of, right here it says 20 feet, of fairly wide driveways. We sometimes call this open frontage, where parking is right next to the road. And the pedestrian enters that feeling a little unsecure because it looks just like it's the vehicle zone. So the recommendation here is, again, providing pavers that really define the pedestrian zone. So at least visually, the driver of a vehicle will say, okay, we'll be able to see that that's actually where the pedestrian zone is, even if it's at the same grade. So here's just a couple of examples of, the tree grates that effectively widen the sidewalk. And we were looking at, Kevin and I had been talking about using granite curbs in this area. Right now, of course, the stonework there has been hit so many times, and I know that when it was put in, it looked great, but it's been hit a lot. And so what's something that could have that historic look, but could really live up to vehicular damage, or not get the same vehicular damage. And so looking at the parkway, they actually use a lot of granite curbs on the parkway. So this is kind of tying that in. Here's an image. Then the last section, what we call section 3, just for planning purposes, heading down again to Valley Boulevard, you see where the new sidewalks have been put in as part of the widening. And of course the church. Again, you've got this very wide swath of pavement and a lot of open frontage. So it's not a very pedestrian zone at all. So what we looked at was a planted median, and that'll still give you two 11-foot lanes, actually, we looked at. And then the median could be heavily planted, with, of course, we'd have to really define the species that will be tolerant of salt and whatnot. But also provide some for example, number 5, provide some pedestrian crosswalks there, even mid-block, because again, this is a very long block. We're looking at 700 linear feet. And then in places where you see Rustique and what was the drugstore? Yeah, exactly, Village Pharmacy. So you have an opportunity there for the next phase of development to really kind of pull that driveway a little tighter, provide shared access potentially there, and then parking. Of course, you continue to allow parking there, but have that a little more defined and have actual sidewalk on that side, which isn't existing now. And so this planted median, we could actually get fairly long lengths of median, because you don't want to have these kind of short, broken up medians, but very strategically placed left turn areas where you open it up so people can turn left. I'll show you the crosswalk, or the cross section here. Of course, existing cross section, wide swaths of pavement and a little sidewalk on one side. So we were looking at a planted median. We show a pedestrian crossing here. We actually kind of zigzag it just a little bit. This is something that DOT prefers to, in effect, get the pedestrian looking in the direction of traffic, right? So it's not just straight across, but we kind of go in this zigzag a little bit. Provide, of course, a 8 to 10 foot sidewalk where we can, and have that with trees in grates. And here you could do a curb, so you wouldn't have to do the flat or the at-grade paving. So here, instead of this whole area, the whole sidewalk as pavers, we just use the decorative pavers more as an accent, because that's kind of since we're in a different section of Sunset Drive, and you wouldn't want to use pavers the entire way on the sidewalk because of expense. But here you could use them as an accent. So we wanted to show a photo rendering here of looking at existing and then a proposed. This really highlights the fact that you're driving over a river, almost makes you feel like you're driving over a bridge, even though it's not technically a bridge right there. But just kind of shows what that could look like with the pedestrian crossing, the gateway elements. And then coming into, speaking of specifically the gateway to from Valley Boulevard, there's the Citgo. And we had shown you in January, I mean, you've all seen these, but these are some things that have been looked at in the past, just some different ideas, and I think borrowing some of those ideas is great, but I think our goal here was to give Blowing Rock something that no other community would have. And so looking at kind of building on of course, the structure, the rock formation, kind of some wind being replicated with different metal. So we kind of took that, and we heard what you all said, which is, it's whimsical, we like that, we don't want it to look too fairy tale-ish, right? And so we do another photo rendering here where we kind of dial back some of those lanterns and have stone caps on those, but still maintain the signage with the blowing rock and kind of the wind aspect. And then 2 kind of gateway towers. These could be, we think in this day and age of selfies, it's really important to have some place where people can be like, I'm in Blowing Rock, please take my picture at this tower, or their own selfie. So kind of coming into some costs, we look at some really conceptual level costs, so you all can do some planning here. And, you know, this is, of course, early on stage, and so we're looking at section 1. It's the shortest section, 300 linear feet. We've got basically removing on-street parking on one side, widening the sidewalks, providing pavers and bollards, street trees and lighting. We're looking at approximately 360. In section 2, adding new curb, lights, widen the sidewalks where we can, and improve crosswalks. We did a conceptual budget there for about $425. And finally, the last section, of course, it's the longest, and we're putting in the most infrastructure, so it's the highest cost of the three. So the next steps, of course, talking to stakeholders, business owners along the corridor, having the public workshop, and this is going to be a drop-in session where we'll have several members of our staff as well as all of these illustrations shown so that people can come up and talk to us personally. So it's not going to be the same, show them the exact same thing that you all have seen here. We really just would rather have kind of personal interactions with people, take notes, and hear their comments. And then hopefully moving on to actually constructing. So that's it. I'll take questions, or if you all don't want questions, that's fine too. Come to the stakeholder meeting and public meeting.
This is just a question, it's not a
Yes, sir.
yay, nay, anything else. Why would you not want to continue continuity of our street lighting down that street?
Yeah, that's something that we talked about at that January council meeting. And if we're looking at Sunset as kind of its own little district, kind of one of the ideas that I think was thrown around was a new style of lighting for that area. Yeah, just to kind of set it apart in a way. Yeah. Set it apart as it's a different commercial district, and plus it serves. And so, of course, it's a commercial district all the way down, but the road itself changes character as it gets closer to Valley Boulevard. But kind of setting this apart, there's really nothing more than that. Just, yeah.
When is the stakeholders meeting?
We're looking at the 23rd. Is that right?
23rd of May?
Yeah.
It's from 4:30 to 6:30, drop in at the American Legion.
And the public meeting?
May 30th,
Okay.
4:30 to 6:30, also at American Legion Building.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, folks. I appreciate it.
Very impressive.
Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good job.
Question that. Was this a conceptual design to replace the last one, the whimsical, just another?
So this actually builds on that concept. It's further up. It's closer to the church, basically. Yep.
So it would be this and that?
Yeah, we're looking at both. Yep.
Super.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Impressive. Okay, yeah. New business, Heather Ridge annexation. Just talk about that.
I think you did it in your, at the end of your public hearing, so.
Yeah, I see it down here again with the new business, okay. Buses, consideration of purchase.
Jennifer?
Jennifer. Trouble.
If she's not here, I'll do it.
Okay, it's all yours. She was here.
Oh, there she is.
Come in, Jennifer.
Do you want to introduce this, or do you want me to? Okay, all right. Well, as background, First Baptist Church, Blowing Rock, called Jennifer and told her that they had decided that they were going to sell their buses as they did not have enough youth to justify keeping them anymore. And they wanted to give the town first right of refusal, so to speak, if they were interested. So we looked at the buses and we went and picked them up, and we had our fleet mechanic, Steve Norris, pull them in and give them a thorough exam. And he was able to dictate some things that needed to be done. There's two buses, both of them are 2001 Fords. One is an F or an E350 and one's an E450. And the blue bus has 59,000 miles on it. It's a 15 passenger, and Steve found it to be in good condition and basically only needed a couple of tires to make it fully usable. If we had them, we would want to put new tires on. By the way, I didn't mention, the town has been using these buses for several years for summer camps and all during the summer. So we have a history with those, or I don't, Jennifer does have a history with those buses already. So he found that vehicle needed 2 tires and a little bit of cosmetic work. And then on the red bus, it's 89,000 miles, 14 passenger, and that it needed brake work, needed 6 new tires, the air conditioning needs to be repaired, and it needs tuned up. He estimated that tune-up and all the repairs at around $1,800. Both of the buses are well suited to our application, as they have plenty of places to haul coolers and lunch boxes and things of that nature when they use them for field trips. We asked Steve to contact some of the dealers and see if we could get any kind of idea, because when First Baptist Church introduced this concept to us of purchase, they didn't tell us how much they wanted. They said, well, you tell us. So he searched to try to find some values for the buses and found that the blue bus was worth approximately $7,500 and the red bus approximately $4,500 for a total of $12,000 for both of them. We weighed the usability, the life, the repairs that were needed, and decided that we would make First Baptist an offer considering contingent upon council's decision, but we told them that if approval was there, that we would give them $5,000 for both buses combined. Didn't really expect them to accept that, but they did. And I think they're just ready to be out of the bus business, and they're gonna sit there and deteriorate if they don't get rid of them. So this basically is just a presentation to the council to see if you have an interest. We told them that it was totally contingent upon council making a decision that that's what they wanted to do, that if we did it, we would give them word that we planned to do it, because they were gonna put them up for sale if we don't. But we did tell them that if council decided that's what they wanted to do, that we would not pay for them until the next budget year. And we do have those in the 17-18 budget. Jennifer has been doing a little research. One of the questions came up was, okay, these are a lot bigger than our van. Do we need a special bus driver? And the answer is no. You don't have to have a CDL to drive these buses because they are 15 and 14 passenger. The safety factor on this type of bus is greater than the safety factor on a van, as a lot of insurance companies really frown on insuring buses, 15 passenger standard vans like we already own, because of the propensity to roll over. So these particular buses, in insurance companies' opinion and in my opinion, are safer. They're wider and not nearly as likely to tip over. We also, let's see, we checked on if we didn't have these buses available to us, what would we do this coming season? Because we have been using them every year, and so we looked into the potential lease of a bus. Buses like this are going to sell for $70,000 to $100,000. I'm sure there's probably some used ones out there that we could find, but we just looked at the immediate alternative, which would be to lease a bus, and our closest company to do that from is Enterprise in Boone, they have the really nice, you know, the tall 15 passenger, which carry with them the same risk, I think, as our current bus of rollover. But the price on the 3-month lease was around $3,750. Is that right?
About
How many?
3,500.
Okay, around $3,500.
3 months.
No, it was for 9 weeks.
For 3 months.
9 weeks.
No, 9 weeks.
9
9
weeks.
weeks.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
Is that 2 or 1?
One.
One.
If we just rented it for 3 days a week for 9 weeks, it was $3,024. So it's easier just to rent it for the whole 9 weeks instead of having to drop it off and pick it up 3 times a week.
So, our fleet mechanic thinks that it's a pretty good deal, that they're in good enough shape that we could get several years of service out of them. The price is certainly low. We're gonna look at roughly 5,000 plus around 3,000, around $2,500, I guess, to put tires and brakes and a few other things on both of them, so we would have approximately $7,500 invested in it. Council willing, we would then surplus the current 15-passenger van that we have, getting some of that money back towards the purchase on these. So, anything else you want to present, Jennifer or Mike? Mike saw them too. Steve, you know, reports to Mike, and he saw the buses down there. They need cleaning up, but they're decent.
Where would you park them?
Chestnut Drive.
Yeah, I figured.
Sir. Ask for that.
Probably the van field.
Okay.
Now during the summer, they'll be
At
parked
the-
for camp.
Yeah.
On the buses, currently when you lease or borrow or whatever, you just use one bus per
Yes,
day?
we have our van.
And I guess the next question is, why would you want 2 then?
Because they have a van.
We're gonna sell that.
We could sell
Oh.
the van.
They'd sell the van.
I see, so you
Keep
need
2
both.
buses and sell the van.
So,
Uh,
yeah, because we have a van.
I can remember when these were purchased, can't you?
Yeah, I remember it. It seems like we paid 55 for one of them used at the time.
But I remember that the red and white one, we no sooner bought that at First Baptist. Maybe you can, and it was always in the shop. It would break down every time they took it someplace.
They didn't
And-
tell us that.
Huh?
They didn't tell us that part.
Of course not. I mean, neither would I if I was selling it to you. But it constantly broke down. And in their infinite wisdom, they said, well, maybe we better get another one. So they got the blue and white one. Now, I don't know how long that one lasted, or what the thing is. But before, I would buy any used car or truck, I would get a report on all the repairs that ever been done to that vehicle. And Keith's group worked on that a lot. And I don't know whether or not the fellow that's got the shop on the way to Lenore on the left-hand side.
Randall Silver.
Huh?
Randall Silver.
Yeah, Randall, whether he did it or not. But I think you ought to, I think you need to look into that. Because they had an awful lot of trouble with the red one, a lot.
I mean, we've driven both of them throughout. the
I
summer.
understand. So did they, before they bought them. And then they kept driving them, and they kept repairing them. So, what I'm suggesting is that those two buses don't have a great track record, particularly if you're gonna take them out of town. If you're gonna take them down to Morganton or take them to Hickory or wherever. If you're just gonna use them running around between here and Boone, maybe it's a pretty good deal. I would get a report, and that's the way I feel about that. I think that they might be, but I don't think it's a very good one. No matter what they don't have a good history.
In the 4 years that you've been driving it, did y'all ever break down? So did you return it back to the Baptist church and after you're done? And have you taken it off the mountain?
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you the blue was purchased brand new by the church.
Was it brand new?
That's a one-owned vehicle. They've owned it since day one.
Was that the one that was 55,000, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the 59,000.
59.
The red,
It says here it's 2001.
yeah. It's probably right.
And it says the red one was 2001.
Yeah, but they bought that one used. That was an airport shuttle bus at Charlotte Airport.
Yeah.
And, all it did was run a 1 mile loop continuous. So it got a lot of miles on it doing that, but we bought that in the second hand.
Wow.
What's your pleasure, folks?
Well, I gotta get something straight in my head. If you bought one bus, it would be how many passengers?
15.
You know, I mean, one bus to replace two.
Okay. Anything over 15, we would have to have, the driver would have to have a CDL. So if we bought one bus, we would need at least a 30-passenger bus. And
30, okay,
Yes,
30, okay.
at least 30.
But, and the other, I just wonder, it appears that when the buses became available, and we've decided we need some more buses, we haven't heard one thing out of you about needing a bus until these things hit the street. I
Well,
mean,
because they've been kind enough to let us borrow one, so it hasn't been an issue until they brought it up that they were selling them. So now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And we used to try to work it out with Watauga Parks and Recreation and borrow their van. And that became the reason why we started going to First Baptist Church is they have 3 summer camps going on at the same time that we have 1 summer camp going on. So it was never available during the times that we needed it. So that's why we started going, we asked First Baptist Church and they were kind enough to let us borrow them and use them for free. We just fill them up. Steve would make sure that, all was well and, before we took them, and they let us borrow them for the whole summer without charging us. And then when they called us and said that they were selling them, now we're stuck in a rock and a hard place.
Let me ask you this. Would the Board of Education let us rent one of their buses?
Yes, but we'd have to have somebody who has a CDL to
They'll have to
drive.
have
Or don't they have the short ones or not? They don't have any of the short ones?
Not 15, not less than 15 passengers.
Oh, they don't.
have a use for it.
Okay.
what is the big deal about this license?
State law.
It's state law.
I understand that, but I mean,
I mean,
Somebody
somebody
could
would have to
get
get
one
their
be obtained.
CDLs and camp starts in a month.
But you could get somebody to get the license. It's not a,
And
I
a
mean,
30-passenger van is 150 grand.
huh?
And a 30-passenger bus is 150 grand.
yeah, but it's carrying some prized possessions.
Amen.
Yeah, well, they've been using these for 4 years and haven't been a problem out of it.
Yeah, well,
Well, we don't know that.
She just
We
said.
really don't.
She just said that.
She did that for
I-
broken
See,
down.
you don't know what you've been doing the other. If I don't know how many times you rented them or used them, but
We use them 3 times a week for
Okay, so the other 9 weeks, we have no idea what happened to those buses, whether they had any breakdowns or not. Don't know.
I'm just saying when we had them, we had
Yeah,
them.
right.
Well, are they insurable? Have we checked on that? They're getting a little age on them.
Liability is no problem, and because of their age, we would not put collision on them.
Right, well, and price,
Yeah.
yeah.
Insurance costs more than the vans would.
So we're looking at 150,000 versus 5. Well, I
So-
mean, there's no argument there, but let's just face the facts. The town's not on welfare. And I would feel better with a new vehicle because, I repeat, the prized possession statement. It's young children.
Could you get by with one?
We kept our van.
I mean, like the blue one,
And keep the van.
huh?
But they have to keep the van.
You'd have to keep the van.
Van.
Okay,
And that van's a piece of crap.
Yeah. It's worse.
so was that red one.
Yeah.
It's far worse than that red one.
We
But-
may have to pay somebody to take it.
Hey, I thought we were gonna have to pay somebody to take the street sweeper, and they paid us $4,500 for it.
What's your pleasure, folks?
I think that, and the mechanics looked it over and everything. I mean, I think we have to give him a little reliability on what that's what we've hired him for. Just think that it's hard to pass up that compared to the other.
It just lasts a couple of years, you've got your money for it. Make a motion, I'll second it.
I make a motion that we get the 2 vans, or 2 buses.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and second. Further discussion?
Does Steve paint, do y'all paint out there? So we're gonna have to paint them?
No, I wouldn't say we're going to have to paint them. The blue one looks pretty good. The red one looks like it's got the appearance it's been stored under trees, not driven, and, you know, all the stuff that falls off and discolors the paint. But we just, one small area on the hood, we took some compound, and that area cleaned up pretty nice, so I think the van of the buses would clean up decent enough that, you know, we're not gonna be embarrassed.
Do you wanna leave, the Lone Rock Baptist Church on the side?
Sure.
That would be the paint I was talking about.
They're stickers, so
Yeah.
they're decals, so they will come off.
Oh, okay, well,
Okay,
good.
that makes it better.
All right.
Easier. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no.
No,
Motion carries. Thank you. Manager's report.
All right. I'm gonna take this out of sequence if I can.
Sure.
All right. We brought a request to council to sell the 2006 Chevrolet Colorado. And I'm happy to report that that vehicle sold on Gov Deals net of fee for $3,561.25. And remind you that it would not pass safety inspection.
We'll sell that van for $10,000.
My guy will know found that van.
The 2000 Ford F-150 did not do as well on it, but it was in a lot worse shape with a tremendous amount of rust. Net of fee was $1,174.75. And we had the lights that were in the old fire station, and there were 34 of those, and I feared that those would not sell, but they did. $45 net of fee. So that is a whole lot better
Hauling them off.
Yeah,
I
we
think
didn't
we
have to
would have been
dispose of
happy
them.
to have given them away, because they were sitting on the ground down there by the, storage building down by the wastewater treatment plant. So we're very happy to get those off. Everything's been picked up, so they're all gone. Wanted to mention to you about local road resurfacing. And, I don't know if you've had reports on this before, so I may have included some that are a little bit older, but, since April at least, the following roads have been resurfaced: Hilltop Way, Skyland View, Church Street, Galax, Edith Lane, a portion of Green Hill Road, Green Hill Woods, Pinnacle Drive, Ridgecrest Lane, Trillium Lane, Village Drive, and Wonderland Trail. So they're approaching the end of first phase, not quite there yet, but I don't know if Mike's still sitting out there or not. I think they were going to do Norwood Circle. I'm not sure if the rain prevented them from doing that. So anyway, we're closing in on the end of phase one bond money. And if you haven't gone to visit some of those, we have had some great comments from people who were very, very satisfied. And one was almost ecstatic, saying, "I've been here 21 years and this road's never been resurfaced," and they were really happy. So
The people from Scotland really
Yep,
think.
Scotland.
You know that.
and just in case council hears of this, there are a few roads that there are a number of cracks in, and the protocol was to tar and gravel and roll first. And boy, we got some phone calls after they did that. They said, "We've been waiting 21 years for this road to be paved, and y'all put tar and gravel. We can't believe you did that to us." So we told them that it was temporary. So that may be done on a couple more. Teresa already mentioned this, but I had this in my notes. Again, just reminder of the Gateway public meeting that Teresa mentioned, May 23rd, 4:30 to 6:30. That is for the merchants on Sunset and council and staff. And if anybody else couldn't be there for the next one on May 30th, it'd be fine for them to come to that one. But the second one is for general public stakeholders, period. Anybody wants to come in and make a comment on May 30th, 4:30 to 6:30. This is not a presentation. You can drop in at any time between those hours. They'll have several people there to discuss.
How are we gonna notify the public?
We have it on the website. We have a mass email, which we will send out, and any other means, I guess, that you might want to suggest. That gets about 600 people.
When does the next, water bill go out?
The next,
Is it
after
after?
that,
It'll be after it?
after that.
Okay, so we can't do that. June? Sort of missed it.
Right. So we'll do everything we can, and the chamber hopefully can assist with that and making sure that your folks, your members know about it, and I think we can get the word out to a lot of people. So. Heidi from Tanger Outlet called and said, "I have more benches. Is the town interested in purchasing those?" So I said, yes. We were able to acquire 12 more park benches, 6 with, 7 with backs, and 5, I think, what's the count?
8 and 4.
8 and 4. 8 with backs and,
Without backs.
okay, the long ones without backs, I'm sorry, 8 of those and 4 with backs. And we're going to be putting those on various places, Main Street, and they were in pretty good shape too. So, if you've seen the ones that Scott and his crew have redone in the park, they'll eventually look like that, but these are perfectly presentable the way they are. So. And I'm happy to report to you that I passed my municipal administration course at Chapel Hill. It was 8 months, testing and classroom time and attendance, and all those things, and it was beneficial, a lot of great information. But I am happy that I am on this side of it rather than on the starting side of it, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think that's all I wanted to do before I mention, I'm going to give you the proposed budget and remind that we have 3 budget workshops scheduled, 2 plus a third if we need it. May 31st here in the council chambers from 6 to 8 p.m. That's a Wednesday. And then on June 1st, same time, 6 to 8, Thursday, and June 2nd, if needed, on Friday, from 6 to 8 p.m. So those are the scheduled budget workshop dates, and if those aren't enough, then we will,
You'll be in.
we will move forward with adding additional.
Okay.
I got 2 questions of Mike. Mike, when are we gonna put center lines on this new pavement? You get up on Green Hill Road in the fall, and you got problems. Can you prompt them a little bit? And on Green Hill Road, they may have fixed it by now, but there's a manhole about that we shouldn't pay for that kind of work. Good. Good. Knock your car out.
Knock you out the seat.
Say, Ed, when does phase 2 start?
Well, the actual paperwork on that begins in fall 2017, and
So there's no paving during the summer?
that's correct. And the actual work that money will be used for will begin probably in spring of 2018.
So we're gonna let bids win, start doing bids win this fall.
I'm still in here.
Bids.
Oh, bids, is Nicole out there?
I know we run into problems with that the last time.
I'm thinking fall, but do you know when the bids will begin for phase 2?
I don't know the bidding increments. I would imagine in the summer and fall, depending on the type of project. But we will have been coordinating those biddings.
Call your attention to the proposed budget. It's much more beautiful, I'm told, than it's ever been before, and we thank Ms. Nicole for that. She had the artistic eye. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things on this as you're seeing it for the first time, and we won't be trying to digest it here tonight. Questions that come up over the next couple of weeks, we entertain those questions, we'll answer them to the best of our ability, but then we have our budget workshop beginning May 31st. So just wanted to bring up a couple of things. Municipal governments are very much restricted in what the state allows them to do in ways of generation of revenue. So we have a severe handicap from the municipal side, and if you've watched what's going on in the legislature over the last 2 or 3 years, especially maybe 4 years, there have been a number of things that have rolled back ways that we are permitted to generate revenue. We are creatures of the state, and as such, we don't have authority to implement something unless the state has given us that authority. So our revenue, ways of gaining revenue are very limited. With this proposed budget, we'll be able to fund all of the items in the proposed budget. And just a reminder that the manager does not make these decisions. The manager makes suggestions and proposes, and council is the one who makes decisions on how they want the town's revenue spent. So while I have made proposals based on our needs. Council will be making those decisions. The proposed budget totals $14.2 million for all of our town operations, including capital improvements and debt service. The proposed budget generates $120,975 for each penny of property tax. This proposed budget has an increase in the property tax rate from 34 to 37 cents, a 3-cent increase per $100 of value. The proposed budget allows for the last phase of the implementation of the class and pay study that brings salaries and wages to the recommended rates from that study. And in addition, we've had a 3.75% increase in COLA over the last 2 years. This year, we're writing off the one previous, but in this budget is a 2.45% COLA. And that's based on the CPI South Wage Index. The proposed budget provides capital investment in the AMI, automated meter infrastructure. This is a great benefit to our water users who would be able to go online, look to see what their water use is. It's very helpful in locating or finding out that you have a leak. And as a proposal, we just looked at a way to do it. This isn't the only way to do it, but this would be $44.28 per month, bi-monthly for 6 months to pay for those meter heads. In addition to the meter heads, we have a lot of meters that cannot accept the head that we would be using, so we will have to change out some of the meters. And we're proposing doing the change out on the meters at town expense, and then our users paying for the actual meter head. This incorporates a increase of 50 cents per month on the base rate for water and sewer, and 25 cents increase in the per 1,000-gallon rate. The proposed budget also allows for the second issuance of the general obligation bond to be funded in spring of 2018, and that consists of $560,000 in park projects, $2,189,000 in transportation projects, $579,000 in water projects, and $335,000 in sewer projects. And of course, beyond that, there would be a phase 3. Again, budget workshops, giving you dates and times on those. And as we have it scheduled right now, our town council meeting in June is June 13th, and at that point, we would have our budget public hearing, and that would be at 6 p.m. So, you have a lot of reading material that will, I'm sure, just spike your interest and keep you awake at night, because you won't be able to go to bed until you read it all. But anyway, I just want to let you know also that I have had the opportunity with working with 4 finance officers in the past, and this year was undoubtedly my best experience. Nicole did a great job, so thank you, Nicole, out there.
I'll just say I'm not surprised by that comment, Ed.
No, me
You
either.
and Nicole, not a bit. Would expected nothing less.
So that is just in a kind of a nutshell, a couple of the highlights, and I'm sure I'll be hearing from you over the next couple of weeks, and getting up to our budget workshop. So anxious to get started.
Good deal. Nice presentation, Ed and Nicole.
And the BRAC cleanup day has been rescheduled?
The BRAC cleanup day, unless there's been a change, They canceled for Saturday, but they made the cleanup day a cleanup week, and it was all this
All
week. And
that's-
so there are sign up, you can go to get your map, and select the area that you're gonna work on. You know, because of the way this happened, I don't know, maybe we need to look at
I've already
a
had
second
several
week.
people in the office, we've had probably 5 maps that are taken out of 16, so, but we're, yes.
You got one of them already.
See, they've got their shirts. But yes, you can come by the office, we have the trash bags, the gloves, the vests, your maps, and because it's cleanup week, Public Works is coming by on a regular basis anyway, so they'll stop and get your trash bags and pick all that up for you, so. And it actually, we've had almost more of a turnout this way than we would on cleanup day.
If we had had it on Saturday, I'm afraid there would have been nobody. It was
Maybe
pretty
we need to
miserable at 8 o'clock
consider
Saturday
that.
morning.
We
Well,
actually
it was
had
just
that
wind was
discussion
blowing.
in our RAC meeting, and we're looking at that.
Do we have any, question, Ed, any flood damage, extraordinary or?
I have not heard of any, Mike has not told me of any, so.
That's good.
That's good, cause they'd flat.
Any flood issues, any water erosion issues that you're aware of?
I noticed that culvert at the end of Cone Road and 221 was stopped up Monday. But it was coming down.
A lot of the culvert kind of things had a lot of rubbish in it,
Yeah, I'm sure.
The improvements
From
worked
the-
out good then, hadn't it?
all over town.
Mike told me that they had measured 17 plus inches of rain at the water treatment plant since beginning of April.
I can believe.
I know, I went by Chatola the other afternoon and there was puddles formed in the middle of the lake there. I don't know if anybody else saw that. That's how hard it was raining.
But you can tell a big difference from the culvert improvements that's been done around town then and a lot of the problem areas that we've had before. 'Cause I've noticed a lot less erosion in some of the ones that we've been having.
Yeah, there was a huge difference there. And I think that rolling these side ditches has made a huge help in the areas that we've been able to get that done. Great improvement.
Yeah, they'll get clogged up.
Yeah.
Mike, my neighbor who will remain unnamed has thrown a piece of, full-baked plywood across the street and it won't go in the bag. Pickup bag. Got me.
Anything else?
Of course, you have your departmental reports. That's it on this end there.
Okay, Charlie Sellers wanted to speak, but he said he may not speak, but since he's not here, I guess he's not gonna speak. Okay, anything else for the good of the cause? Thank y'all for being here. Have a wonderful evening.
He must have left.
We stand adjourned.